Well, I called the Rhodesian Viscount disasters the Rhodesia's 9/11 because that's precisely what it was. To explain why I came to this conclusion is because one's got to look at the history that was going on, why there was a missile campaign in the first place. On the one side, you had Mugabe, whose Shona population constituted 80% of the population. On the other side, he was supported by the Chinese. On the other hand, you had Nkomo, whose Ndebele faction was only 20% of the population, and because of that, he had no chance of winning the post-war elections. He was supported by the Russians, and the Russians and the Chinese were competing with one another to get a foothold in Rhodesia, because that would be the launching stage for their ultimate objective, which was South Africa for its mineral wealth and the Cape Sea route. So there was a Russian general by the name of Solodonikov. He was a KGB general. He was positioned in Lusaka, and he was known for stirring up revolutions throughout Africa. That was his job. And he and the president of Russia visited Kenneth Kaunda, who was the president of Zambia, where Nkomo's forces were based. They visited them 2 months before the missile campaign began. And it was quite clear that Nkomo didn't have the brain power to work out why the missile campaign should take place. He was advised by Solodonikov. There's absolutely no question about that in my mind anyway. And the idea was that he could only win the elections if he won with an outright win on the war. And to do that, he needed to do more than put boots on the ground. He had to create catastrophes of national proportion that would demoralize the entire population, and to get political pressure put on the government to accept a settlement under less favorable terms than they otherwise would do. And that was his intention, was to bring the war to a rapid end, because a lot of the people who would be traumatized through these catastrophes would be part-time soldiers like farmers and others. There was a lot of high component of territorial force members in the security forces. By territorial, I mean part-time soldiers. So they had a civilian job as well as military duties, and it created just exactly what Solodonikov wanted. After the first Viscount was brought down, the immigration figures rocketed to 2,000 a month. The effect of the population was quite obvious. And a few months later, he brought down the second Viscount, which only accelerated the emigration from the country. And what he was actually achieving there was to become recognized as the only power that could bring an end to the Viscount disasters, to attacking civilian aircraft in the air. And that, not long after that, came the Lancaster House settlement, and Rhodesians accepted less favorable terms than what they otherwise would have done. At this stage, I want to tell you about something else. There was the gang that massacred the 10 survivors. They were actually eliminated within 1 week of the Viscount Anyani being brought down. And that fact was never publicized. Likewise, the SAS attack on the missile gang was never publicized. Now, if you think about it, had the first, particularly the first attack on the massacre gang been publicized, the Rhodesian public would have been elated. They would have said, our security forces can handle anything that comes our way, we're staying, and it would give them revived energy to fight the war. Likewise, same thing with the missile gang. Now, my question is, why were they never publicized? There was a mole somewhere in ComOps or the hierarchy somewhere that didn't want that effect to happen. And we want to know who that person was and why.